Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. After repeated refusals to answer tax questions before this committee last year, finally we have an opportunity each to ask you an entire 3 minutes of questions. I think it's the congressional committee equivalent of government by tweet. But I do have 3 questions for you. The first one is that according to the joint tax analysis, the rate drop for the top tax bracket cost the Treasury $220 billion. That's for people that earn $500,000 a year in income. You promised that there would be no absolute tax cut for the upper class, and the President said much the same. The Trump budget proposes to cut student aid programs over the budget period about the same amount, $200 billion. I think that's the ticket to the middle class, and it's also the ticket to keeping our workforce competitive. Wouldn't restoring that top rate allow us, and it's a top rate that all the Republican members of this committee thought was perfectly adequate when it was voted out of this committee. As you know, this was something that got added on in conference. Wouldn't that restoration allow us to avoid those student assistance cuts, or if you don't want to do that, at least to moderate the harsh reduction in Medicaid that the President said would never occur? The second question, and I'll just ask you to respond to all 3 at once, concerns the claim that every American household would get $4,000 every year in increased household income. In fact, when you came out of hiding on December 17th on Fox News, you said it would be $4,500 for every family. Isn't it true, or do you disagree with the recent survey that 98% of Americans have not received any additional compensation at all? And while I'm very pleased that somebody gets even $1.50 a week in additional benefit from this bill, isn't it true that there are very few Americans, if any, who've actually gotten $4,500 in additional wage increase out of this, even though you gave a permanent tax increase and even though it's been in place now for 2 months? I assume as well that while the President wants to take credit for the few that have happened, that he doesn't want to take credit for the decision by Pfizer, one of the biggest beneficiaries, to cut Parkinson's and Alzheimer's research and terminate workers. Finally, you said yesterday that the reason that these stock buybacks may be occurring is because the companies don't have a good reason to invest in America. Isn't that an indication that some of this tax bill was misplaced, since so much of the money is going to corporate buybacks?
Gentleman's time has expired. If you'd answer,
can we hear
Doggett,
from him on any
in
of
a
those?
written? Excuse me, Mr. Doggett.
Yeah.
Your time has expired. If you'd like to, if you would respond in writing to Mr. Doggett, we'll move forward with the hearing.